The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched high above, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of distant stars. Admiral James Walker stood tall, his weathered face showing no sign of the anxiety he felt inside. Earth's first diplomatic mission beyond the solar system had brought him here, to the heart of galactic civilization. Around him, towering aliens of various species sat in elevated seats, looking down at the human delegation with a mixture of curiosity and poorly hidden amusement. The council chamber's central display showed a hologram of Earth's defense fleet, their pride and joy, the culmination of decades of technological advancement. "These are your warships." The head counselor, a tall being with silver skin, leaned forward. His universal translator couldn't quite hide the mockery in his tone. Walker nodded firmly. "Yes, Counselor. The Earth Defense Fleet consists of 50 ships, each representing the peak of our engineering capabilities." Laughter erupted from the section where the Starhawk delegation sat. Their massive frames shook with amusement, their hawk-like features twisted in sneers. Admiral Cross, their military representative, stood up. His black and gold armor gleamed under the chamber's lights. "Surely this is a joke," Cross declared, pointing at the hologram. "Your largest vessel is barely the size of our scout ships. How do you expect to defend your territory with such tiny toys?" Walker kept his face neutral, though his hand tightened slightly on his ceremonial sword. The human ships were indeed small compared to the massive dreadnoughts used by most galactic civilizations, where their ships stretched for kilometers. The largest human vessel was only about 200 meters long. "Size isn't everything, Admiral Cross," Walker responded calmly. "Our ships are perfectly suited to our needs." Another burst of laughter echoed through the chamber. The head counselor raised a hand for silence. "Admiral Walker," he said, looking down at the human delegation, "standard galactic protocol requires member races to maintain a fleet capable of contributing to the collective defense of Council space. Your vessels, while technologically interesting, simply lack the necessary presence." Walker stepped forward. "Our ships have proven highly effective in—" "How many crew members can your largest ship carry?" interrupted a reptilian counselor. "5. Walker answered proudly. The chamber erupted in laughter again. Even the usually diplomatic Centaurians were hiding their faces behind their appendages. 5. Admiral Cross could barely contain himself. "Our smallest combat vessel requires a crew of 300. A proper warship needs at least 1,000 crew members to function effectively. What you have here is not a fleet. It's a collection of escape pods." The head counselor raised his hand again, bringing the chamber to order. His expression was one of polite dismissal. "Admiral Walker, while we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for joining the Galactic Council, we must regretfully deny your application at this time. Your civilization clearly needs more time to develop proper military capabilities, perhaps in a few centuries when you've learned to build ships of appropriate size." Walker stood straight, his blue eyes scanning the chamber. He saw the dismissal in their eyes, the condescension in their postures. But he also saw something else, something that made his spine tingle with warning. The way Admiral Cross was looking at the hologram of Earth's fleet, it wasn't just mockery anymore. It was calculation. "We understand, Counselor," Walker replied formally. "Earth thanks you for your consideration." As the human delegation left the chamber, Walker could still hear the muffled laughter behind them, but his mind was already racing ahead. He needed to send a warning back to Earth immediately. He had seen that look before in humanity's own history, the look of a powerful force eyeing what they perceived as easy prey. They thought humanity's ships were weak because they were small. They were about to learn a very important lesson about underestimating humans. Walker touched the communication device on his wrist. "Command, this is Walker. Begin Operation Watchful Eye. Authorization code Delta 79. They took the bait exactly as expected. The tiny device chirped in acknowledgement, and Walker allowed himself a small smile. Let them laugh. They would learn soon enough. 2 weeks after the council meeting, Admiral Walker stood in Earth's Central Command, his face grim as he watched the massive display screen. Red dots appeared one by one along the border of human space, each representing a Starhawk warship moving into position. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore," said General Roberts, his old friend and Earth's defense chief. The general's gray hair seemed to have gotten whiter in the past few days. 17 dreadnoughts spotted in the last 3 days alone. Walker nodded, studying the tactical display. "They think we're weak. Easy prey." He pointed to a cluster of red dots. "Look at their formation. They're not expecting any real resistance." The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and the low hum of the air filters. 30 of Earth's top military commanders sat around the circular table, their faces lit by the blue glow of their data screens. "Our spies in the Starhawk Empire have confirmed our suspicions," an intelligence officer named Thompson reported, her voice steady. "They plan to annex our space. Their official reason will be protective custody of a developing civilization." Her fingers made air quotes around the words. Walker's jaw tightened. "In other words, they think we're children who need to be controlled. Their propaganda has already started," Thompson continued, bringing up several alien news reports on the main screen. "They're calling it a peacekeeping mission to protect us from dangerous elements." General Roberts let out a short, harsh laugh. "Peacekeeping. They're bringing enough firepower to glass half our colonies." Walker stepped closer to the tactical display, his eyes focused on the massive red icons representing the Starhawk dreadnoughts. Each one was the size of a small city, carrying crews of thousands. Next to them, the blue dots representing Earth's ships looked tiny and insignificant. "They still don't understand," Walker said softly, a slight smile playing on his lips. "They see our ships and think we're primitive. They never stop to ask why we build them this way." He turned to face the room. "Status report on Operation Watchful Eye." A young officer named Miller stood up. "All ships are in position, sir, hidden in the asteroid fields and debris clouds, just as planned. The Starhawks haven't detected any of them." "Of course they haven't," Walker replied. "Their sensors are calibrated to look for ships their size. Anything smaller registers as space debris." He paused, looking at each commander in turn. "That's their first mistake." The display shifted, showing detailed scans of the Starhawk ships. Their massive engines, their heavy armor, their powerful but slow-charging weapons. Everything about them was built to overwhelm through sheer size and power. "They think bigger is better," Walker continued. "They've never considered the advantages of being small. They don't understand why we only need crews of 5 instead of 500. He smiled again, but this time there was steel in it. "They're about to learn." General Roberts stood up, his voice firm. "All colonial populations have been quietly evacuated to the backup shelters. The Starhawks will find empty cities if they attack. Our production facilities are running at full capacity, hidden underground. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Walker nodded, then pressed a button on his console. A new image appeared on the screen, a detailed simulation of what was about to happen. "The Starhawks will attack soon. They'll expect us to either surrender immediately or try to fight them head-on with our tiny ships." His smile grew wider. "We're going to give them a very different kind of fight." The room was silent as the commanders watched the simulation play out. When it finished, several of them were smiling too. "Send the coded alert to all ships," Walker ordered. "Tell them to stay hidden but ready. When the Starhawks come." He paused, looking at the massive red dots on the display one last time. "When they come, we'll show them why humans learn to think differently about space warfare." As the commanders filed out to prepare their forces, Walker remained, watching the enemy ships slowly gather. Let them come with their massive ships and their ancient tactics. Let them think size was all that mattered. The storm was coming. But this time, David had more than just a slingshot ready for Goliath. The attack began exactly as Admiral Walker had predicted. 50 massive Starhawk warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, their huge forms blocking out the stars behind them. All ships report in, Walker commanded from his bridge on the flagship Guardian. Around him, his 4 crew members worked quietly at their stations, each one linked to the ship's AI through their neural interfaces. "They're broadcasting their demand for surrender," reported Lisa, his communications officer. Her hands moved quickly across the holographic controls. "They're giving us 1 hour to respond." Walker smiled. "Send them nothing. Let them come to us." The Starhawk fleet moved forward in a classic arrow formation, their massive ships looking like moving mountains in space. Each one was nearly 20 times the size of the Guardian, their weapons capable of destroying small moons. "Enemy ships entering optimal range," reported Mark from the tactical station. "They're launching fighter squadrons." Walker watched as thousands of smaller ships poured out of the Starhawk vessels. Even these fighter craft were larger than his own ship. The enemy clearly wanted to frighten Earth into submission with this show of force. "All ships, execute Operation Scatter," Walker ordered calmly. The response was immediate. The 30 human ships that had been holding position near Earth's orbit suddenly broke formation, each one flying in a different direction. To the Starhawks, it must have looked like panic, like little fish scattering before sharks. "They're taking the bait," Mark reported, a grin in his voice. "Their fleet is breaking formation to chase us." Walker nodded. This was the Starhawks' second mistake. Their pride wouldn't let them ignore what looked like fleeing prey. Their massive fleet split apart, each ship pursuing what they thought was an easy target. "All ships, activate full neural control," Walker commanded. "Show them what we can really do." The Guardian's AI merged more deeply with the crew's thoughts through their neural links. This was humanity's greatest advantage, the thing the aliens had never understood. Human ships were small because they didn't need huge crews. 5 humans, linked directly to their ship's AI, could do the work of 500 aliens. The Guardian shot forward with impossible speed, pulling a turn that would have killed an unprotected crew. But thanks to their advanced inertial dampeners, only possible on smaller ships, Walker and his crew felt nothing. "Target locked," reported Mark. "They can't track us. We're moving too fast, and their targeting systems are designed for larger vessels." Walker watched as his ship dove between 2 massive Starhawk cruisers. They fired their heavy weapons, but the Guardian was already gone, their shots hitting empty space. The human ship spun on its axis, firing precisely at the weak points in the larger ship's shields. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships danced between their massive opponents like hornets attacking elephants. The Starhawk's powerful weapons were useless if they couldn't hit their targets. "First enemy ship disabled," called out Rachel from the engineering station. Team 7 just took out their primary power core. More reports flooded in. 3 more Starhawk ships dead in space. 2 more suffering critical damage. The massive aliens had never faced an enemy like this. Ships so small and agile, they could slit through their defensive screens. Crews so well integrated with their vessels that they could perform maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. "Guardian actual to all ships," Walker broadcast. "Begin Phase 2. Show them why we build our ships this way." The human fleet regrouped with practiced precision. Now it was time to demonstrate that their small size wasn't just about maneuverability. It was about being able to go where the enemy couldn't follow. As the remaining Starhawk ships tried to reform their broken formation, Walker allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The aliens had laughed at Earth's tiny ships. They weren't laughing anymore. "All ships," he commanded, "into the asteroid field. Let's show them what else small ships can do." The real battle was about to begin, and size was about to become a very big disadvantage for the Starhawks. The asteroid field spread before them like a maze of floating mountains. Rocks the size of cities drifted silently through space, creating endless shadows and hiding places, perfect for small ships, a nightmare for large ones. "Enemy fleet is following us in," reported Mark from his tactical station aboard the Guardian. Just as expected. Their pride won't let them back down. Admiral Walker watched as the massive Starhawk ships entered the asteroid field. Their huge forms struggled to maneuver between the rocks, forced to blast smaller asteroids out of their way. Each explosion created more debris, making their situation even worse. "All ships, execute Operation Hidden Strike," Walker commanded. "Show them why being small is an advantage." The human fleet split into teams of 3. The Guardian led its group deeper into the field, weaving between asteroids with precise movements. Behind them, a Starhawk dreadnought followed, its massive engines training as it tried to keep up. "They're firing blind," Lisa reported from communications. "Their sensors are confused by all the metal in the asteroids." Walker nodded. "Execute Attack Pattern Delta." The Guardian suddenly cut its engines, letting momentum carry it behind a large asteroid. 2 other human ships, the Swift and the Thunder, did the same nearby. They waited as the huge Starhawk ship passed their position. Now, all 3 human ships burst from their hiding spots, attacking from different angles. The Guardian targeted the Dreadnought's engines, while the Swift focused on its weapon systems. The Thunder flew straight at the bridge, forcing the massive ship to divide its attention. "Their shields are strongest at the front," Walker reminded his crew. "But they can't maintain full power all around a ship that size. Find the weak spots." The Guardian danced through space, avoiding the Dreadnought's return fire with ease. Their small size made them nearly impossible to hit, while the Starhawk ship couldn't dodge at all. It was like watching a whale try to catch minnows. Similar battles played out across the asteroid field. Human ships struck from hiding, disappeared again, then struck from new angles. The Starhawk's superior firepower meant nothing if they couldn't hit their targets. "Enemy ship shields are failing," Mark called out excitedly. "Port side, near their secondary reactor." Walker leaned forward in his command chair. "All ships, concentrate fire on that location. Show them what precision targeting can do." The 3 human ships coordinated their attack perfectly, their crews working in perfect sync with their ship's eyes. Small, concentrated beams of energy struck the same spot again and again. The Starhawk's shields flickered and died. "Their power core is exposed," Rachel reported from engineering. "One good hit will shut them down." Walker gave the order. "Fire." The Guardian's main weapon fired, a focused beam that looked tiny compared to the Starhawk's massive energy weapons. But it didn't need to be big. It just needed to be precise. The beam struck exactly where intended. The Dreadnought's lights flickered and died, its massive form now drifting helplessly in space. "Confirmed kill," Mark announced. "Enemy ship is disabled." Across the battlefield, more reports came in. 2 more Starhawk ships disabled, another forced to retreat. The massive aliens were learning the hard way that bigger wasn't always better. "We're picking up transmissions from their fleet," Lisa reported. They're calling us demons. Say we fight like space ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Send a message to all human ships. Phase 3 begins in 5 minutes. Let's show them what else our tiny ships can do." The Guardian regrouped with its squadron, preparing for the next stage of battle. Already, 15 Starhawk ships had been disabled or destroyed. The aliens were learning that size wasn't everything in space combat. Sometimes, being small meant you could hit where the enemy couldn't defend. "All ships, prepare for Phase 3, Walker commanded. "Let's finish teaching them this lesson." The battle was far from over, but the tide had turned. The mighty Starhawk fleet was about to learn another painful lesson about underestimating humanity's ingenuity. "Activate stealth systems," Admiral Walker ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos of battle around them. "All ships, power down to minimal levels." The Guardian's lights dimmed as its energy signature dropped to almost nothing. Across the asteroid field, the other human ships did the same. To the Starhawk sensors, they would look like nothing more than chunks of metal debris. indistinguishable from the thousands of asteroids around them. Enemy fleet is regrouping, Mark reported from Tactical. They're trying to form a defensive circle. Through the bridge viewport, Walker could see the remaining Starhawk ships clustering together. Their massive forms created an impressive wall of metal and energy shields, but their formation had one major flaw. They were now surrounded by what appeared to be harmless space debris. They still don't understand, Walker said softly. They think size equals strength. They never considered that being small enough to hide might be an advantage. The Starhawk fleet's commanders were clearly frustrated. Their ship's powerful sensors swept the asteroid field repeatedly, searching for the human vessels that had caused so much damage. But they were looking for engine signatures and energy readings typical of large warships. They found nothing. All ships, prepare for ghost. The remaining Starhawk ships hung in space like wounded giants. Their once proud formation was now scattered, with several vessels trailing debris and venting atmosphere. But some still fought on, too proud to surrender. Enemy ships are attempting to regroup again, Mark reported from his tactical station aboard the Guardian. They're trying to form a defensive line to protect their damaged vessels. Admiral Walker studied the battlefield display. Even now, after all their losses, the Starhawks were still thinking like a big fleet, still relying on their size and power rather than adapting to the situation. Time to show them our specialized ships, Walker said. Launch Operation Checkmate. The Guardian's crew worked smoothly at their stations, coordinating with the rest of the human fleet. This was the moment they had trained for, the final phase that would demonstrate just how far human innovation had come. All ships, form up by type, Walker commanded. Disruptors in front, strikers on the flanks, Guardians in the center. Show them why we built different ships for different jobs. The human fleet reorganized with practiced precision. Unlike the Starhawks, who built all their ships to be massive all-purpose weapons, humanity had developed specialized vessels. Each type had its own unique role to play. Disruptor teams, you're up first, Walker ordered. Show them what those EMP cannons can do. The smallest human ships, barely the size of shuttles, darted forward. These were the disruptors, built for one specific purpose. Their main weapons weren't designed to destroy. They were meant to disable. EMP bursts ready, called the commander of the lead disruptor. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Pulses of electromagnetic energy shot out from the small ships, catching 3 Starhawk vessels in their range. The alien shields, designed to stop physical weapons and energy beams, did nothing against this type of attack. Direct hits, Mark announced. Enemy ships are losing power. Their systems are shutting down. The massive Starhawk ships went dark, their mighty engines and weapons rendered useless by ships a fraction of their size. Their crews would be fine, but their advanced technology was temporarily paralyzed. Striker teams, move in, Walker commanded. Target their shield generators and weapon systems. Make it precise. The Strikers, specialized ships built for pinpoint attacks, moved in next. They were slightly larger than the Disruptors, but still tiny compared to the enemy. Each one carried weapons designed to pierce specific points in enemy defenses. The Strikers worked in perfect coordination, their crews linked to their ship's A's. They hit the Starhawk vessels exactly where they were weakest, using minimal force for maximum effect. It was like watching surgeons operate rather than soldiers fight. "Sir," Lisa called from communications, "we're picking up widespread panic in the enemy fleet. They're saying one human ship is worth 10 of theirs. They don't understand how we're doing this." Walker nodded. "Send a message to the enemy admiral. Tell them this is what happens when you learn to do more with less, when you have to think smarter instead of just building bigger." The remaining Starhawk ships began powering down their weapons. One by one, they transmitted surrender signals. The battle was effectively over. Final count, Mark reported. 28 enemy ships disabled or surrendered. 7 destroyed when they refused to stand down. 15 escaped. On our side, 3 ships damaged, none destroyed. A cheer went up from the Guardian's crew. They had just defeated a fleet many times their size, proving that humanity's approach to space warfare was superior. "Send word to Earth," Walker ordered. "Tell them the Starhawk threat has been neutralized. And add this: tell them Operation Teaching Moment was a complete success." As the human fleet moved to secure their prisoners and assist damaged vessels, Walker reflected on how quickly things had changed. Just weeks ago, the Starhawks had laughed at Earth's tiny ships. Now they had learned, the hard way, that size wasn't everything in space. Sometimes, the smallest ships could teach the biggest lessons. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. On the massive display screen, recordings of the battle played out. The counselors watched as Earth's tiny ships systematically took apart the mighty Starhawk fleet. No one was laughing now. Admiral Walker stood in the center of the chamber again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. The aliens who had mocked human ships weeks ago now looked at him with a mixture of respect and fear. "As you can see," Walker said calmly, "size isn't everything in space warfare. Earth chose to build smaller ships for very specific reasons." The head counselor leaned forward, his silver skin reflecting the light from the battle recordings. "Please explain these reasons, Admiral. The Council is most interested in understanding human military philosophy." Walker nodded, gesturing to the display. "First, smaller ships need smaller crews. This allows us to use advanced AI integration and neural links. 5 humans working directly with their ship's computer can do the work of 500 traditional crew members." The chamber remained silent as Walker continued. "Second, smaller ships can use technologies that don't work on larger vessels. Our inertial dampeners, for example, allow maneuvers that would kill the crew of a bigger ship. But your weapons," a reptilian counselor started to object, "are precisely what they need to be." Walker interrupted. "We don't need city-sized weapons that can destroy moons. We need accurate, efficient weapons that can disable an enemy without wasting energy." The recording showed a human striker ship performing a precision attack on a Starhawk vessel's shield generator. The smaller ship's perfect accuracy drew murmurs of appreciation from the military observers in the chamber. "Most importantly," Walker continued, "we learned to work with our limitations rather than trying to overcome them through brute force. Earth doesn't have the resources to build massive fleets of giant ships, so we built better ships instead." The head counselor raised his hand. "The Council has reviewed Earth's original application for membership. In light of recent events, we have decided to reconsider our position." Walker smiled slightly. "Earth appreciates the Council's willingness to reconsider. However, our terms have changed." This caused a stir in the chamber. The counselors looked at each other in surprise. Walker went on, his voice firm but respectful. "Earth will join the Council, but as an equal member with full voting rights. Additionally, we offer to share our ship design philosophy and training methods with other Council races. Share your military technology." Admiral Cross of the Starhawks spoke up from his section, his voice much more subdued than during their last meeting. "Why would you do this?" "Because the greatest strength isn't in having the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons," Walker replied. "It's in working together, combining different approaches to solve problems. Earth doesn't want to dominate. We want to contribute." The Council chamber buzzed with excited discussion. Several military representatives were already making notes, their earlier mockery forgotten in the face of human innovation. The head counselor stood, raising his hands for silence. "The Council accepts Earth's terms. Welcome, Admiral Walker, to the Galactic Council. We look forward to learning from each other." As the chamber erupted in applause, Walker looked around at the alien faces, where once he had seen dismissal and mockery. He now saw respect and curiosity. Earth's tiny fleet had done more than win a battle. It had changed the way the galaxy thought about warfare. "One final question, Admiral," the head counselor said as the applause died down. "What made humans think so differently about ship design in the first place?" Walker smiled. "On Earth, we have a saying: work smarter, not harder. We learned long ago that the biggest fighter doesn't always win the fight. Sometimes being clever, efficient, and precise is more important than being powerful. He looked up at the final image frozen on the display. A small human ship flying triumphantly past a disabled Starhawk dreadnought. Size isn't everything, Walker concluded. Today's battle proved that. And now, together, we can all learn to think bigger by building smaller. The council chamber filled with approving nods and thoughtful expressions. The galaxy would never be the same, and it all started because someone laughed at a tiny fleet.